Hello, I'm Vidushi, and you are watching Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper analysis from the UPSC perspective. Today, we have taken up important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express newspaper dated 18 December 2023. And topics for prelims discussion are: first is based on Kuno National Park because recently two cheetahs have been released in tourist zone of Kuno National Park. And UPSC has been asking question on themes like national park, wildlife sanctuaries. Second, we have taken on Black Sea because Black Sea became an epicenter of conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Then we have next question on nuclear power reactor because recently the fourth unit of Kakrapa nuclear reactor attained criticality. Now, what is criticality? That we'll discuss in our main discussion. Then our next question is based on terms of trade for Indian agriculture because there's an article which deal with terms of trade. Then for mains we have taken up two important topics. First based on export led growth model because there's an article which deals with the concerns related to falling exports. Then we have discussion with respect to Forest Rights Act because there is article which deals with important facets of Forest Right Act 2006. So, without wasting much time, let's start our discussion. Before that, I have one request that if you like our videos, please like, share and subscribe our videos. Okay. So let's start with our first discussion, which is based on this news article which appeared on page number 6 in the Hindu newspaper. Context is, as I told you, two cheetahs named Agni and Vayu have been released in the safari zone of Kuno National Park in Shiopur district in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, you must have heard about this national park in many newspaper articles because in year 2009, Kuno National Park was the proposed site for cheetah reintroduction, which was begun in year 2022. And in year 2022, 8 cheetahs from Namibia landed in India at Kuno National Park. And this 17th September marked the second year. Okay. So now, we have taken a practice question on Kuno National Park because UPSC has been asking question on different national parks like in year 2019. UPSC has asked question based on India's Desert National Park. And we'll solve this answer. First, let's see important details with respect to Kuno National Park. Now, Kuno National Park. It is situated in which state? Yes, Madhya Pradesh. And Madhya Pradesh form part of Peninsular Plateau. Okay. It derives its name from river Kuno. Now, Kuno is tributary of river Chambal. Now, you need to tell me, Chambal is tributary of which river? Yamuna or Ganga? Yes, Yamuna. All these details are quite important for your prelims examination. Okay, now this Kuno National Park is situated in two districts. And what are those districts? Shirapur, as we have mentioned in the context. Then Shivpuri. Okay. Two districts. These districts lies near Vindhyan range in Madhya Pradesh. Okay. This Kuno National Park form the part of Gir Kathiawar dry deciduous ecozone. Now, this Kuno National Park forms a part of Gir Kathiawar, that is Kathiawar Plateau. Gir is also part of that. Dry deciduous means trees in this forest, they shed their leaves for a specific time period in response to dry period. Okay. So this region basically forms a part of arid zone, arid ecozone. Okay. Which stretches across 3 different states: Rajasthan, Gujarat, that is why Gir Kathiawar, then Madhya Pradesh. Okay. And this dry deciduous forest consists of trees like hardai, kher, etc. These are the prominent trees in dry deciduous forest. Okay. Now, let's solve practice MCQ. Sorry. First statement is it spreads over two districts of Madhya Pradesh. Yes. And what are those two districts? Shiopur and Shivpuri. That makes this statement correct. Then it is the only national park in India that is home to cheetah. Correct? In 2009, it was the first proposed site, and cheetah reintroduction program started in year 2022 when 8 cheetahs came from Namibia to India and landed up at Kuno National Park. Okay, so this makes Kuno National Park the only national park in India that is home to cheetahs. Now, it has a unique forest area with kardai, salai, and kher trees. These are the prominent trees of, yes, dry deciduous forest. Okay, forest where trees shed their leaves for a specific season in response to dry period. Now, in this question, you need to find out the incorrect statements. But here, all these statements are correct. So, what would be the answer? Your answer would be D. Okay. And here, answer of this PYQ is option C. That is 1 and 3 only. Now, let's come to the next question. Next question is based on this news article which appeared on page number 9 in the Indian Express. And the context of this news article, as I told you, that Black Sea is working as an epicenter of dispute amid the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Because Ukraine and Russia launched numerous drones which basically attacked Russia airbase near Black Sea. Okay. And India should not ignore naval lessons from Russian-Ukraine conflict. It's a learning for India. Now, UPSC has been asking based on based on geographical locations, like this question, where UPSC provided you two columns. One consists of different sea with bordering countries, respective bordering countries. And this question UPSC asked in year 2019. So here we have curated practice question based on Black Sea. Now before answering that, first let us see map. Now here you can see Black Sea is an inland sea. Why inland sea? Because it is bordered by different countries. Okay, it is a landlocked. Now, inland seas. It lie between two continents. And what are those continents? Europe and Asia. Okay. And it is bordered by total 6 countries. And what are those countries? Georgia in east, Russia in northeast, Ukraine in north. Then we have Romania and Bulgaria in west. Then we have Turkey in south. Okay. So total how many countries? Russia, Georgia, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria and Turkey. Total 6 countries. So bordered by 6 countries. Okay. And rivers provide base for this Black Sea. Yes. Danube, Don and Dnieper. These are the important rivers from the base of Black Sea. Now, one interesting fact is with respect to Black Sea is that Black Sea, one interesting fact is that Black Sea forms the largest base for, let me write you, let me write for you, that is Meromictic Basin. Now, what is Meromictic Basin? See, basically, the lower layers of Black Sea, lower layers of water of Black Sea do not mix with upper layers. Okay. See, these layers do not mix with upper layers. So, what will happen? 90% of this deep volume of Black Sea is anoxic in nature. That means without oxygen. Anoxic means without oxygen. So these layers are without oxygen. Okay. So these are the important facts with respect to Black Sea. Now let's solve our question. Sorry, one technical glitch is there. Hmm. Sorry for the delay. So these are the important facts related to Black Sea. Now let's solve a question. Question is, consider the following, and here you are provided with 7 countries: Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, Macedonia, Bulgaria, Georgia, and Turkey. And here, how many of the countries mentioned above borders Black Sea? Now, you know answer of this question. Total 6 countries: Ukraine, Russia, Georgia, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania. So, in this option, you can cut down Moldova, Macedonia. So, your answer is option C, that only 6 countries. Okay. And answer of this PYQ is option B. Now, let's come to the next. Now, let's come to the next discussion, which is based on this news article, which appeared on page number 12 in the Hindu newspaper. Context is that India's second indigenous 700 megawatt nuclear power reactor at Kakrapar Atomic Power Project in Gujarat has achieved its first criticality. Now, what is criticality means? That nuclear fission or nuclear reaction in this reactor is controlled or self-controlled or sustained nuclear reaction. Okay, that means attained criticality. It has set the stage for its gradual move towards producing electricity for commercial purposes. Okay, now UPSC has been asking questions based on different aspects related to nuclear power or nuclear power plants. This question was based on International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, which came in year 2020. So here we have taken a practice question based on nuclear energy, and you are provided with two statements, and you need to find out the correct one. Before that, first we need to understand basics about nuclear energy, and we'll start with nuclear fission. Now, nuclear fission is a type of nuclear reaction in which nucleus of heavy atom, that is like for example uranium or plutonium, it is bombarded by neutrons, which release lots of neutrons and energy. Okay, and further in the process these neutrons will again split nuclei or small nuclei into smaller nuclei, which again will release set of neutrons and lot of energy. So as you can see in this image, neutron bombarded atom or nucleus of heavy atom like uranium and plutonium, here example of uranium 235. So it will split into different small nuclei. Okay, and then it release different neutrons and energy, and this energy released in this process can be harnessed and converted into steam, which can turn up turbine to produce electricity. That's how nuclear energy produce electricity. Okay, so this is about the nuclear fission, and as you've seen that neutron bombardment splitting the heavy atom into different nuclei, uh, it set a course of chain reaction, and that chain reaction is known as nuclear fission. Okay, so here let's understand what is criticality. Criticality means number of neutrons produced in the process or in the process of nuclear fission. Number of neutrons produced in the nuclear fission, okay, is equivalent to number of neutrons lost in the process. Number of neutrons lost in the process, maybe because of absorption or leakages or any other factor. So here you can see it is a kind of equilibrium between number of neutrons produced in the process and number of neutrons lost in the process, and this new equilibrium set a controlled or sustained chain reaction, and that is known as criticality, and that is why it is mentioned here that Kakrapar fourth unit is the second indigenous unit which attained criticality. Okay, now what is the fuel material for nuclear reaction? Yes, uranium 235, which is a low enriched fuel. Okay, see basically naturally occurring uranium consists of three isotopes of uranium. What are those? uranium 238, uranium 235, and uranium 234. So majorly 99% is uranium 238. Then we have uranium 235, that is 0.7 percentage. Then we have uranium 234, that is 0.5. So you can make it that highest proportion is of uranium 238, then uranium 235. But you will be amazed to know that uranium 235 is the only existing nuclide which is fissile in nature, or which is fissile with thermal neutrons. Okay. So to produce electricity, what we need? Uranium 235. But actually, its proportion is quite less. So what we should do? We should enrich uranium to make it to make it or utilize it for a better fuel. And how we can do that? By adding concentration of uranium 235 in it. Yes? Okay. So now you know what is a nuclear fission. What do you mean by criticality? You understood the process. Then basic fuel used in nuclear fission, that is uranium 235. So currently in India we have 22 nuclear reactor in 8 states. For your pre, you should read about all these, at least location wise. See, in article we have mentioned about Kakrapar Atomic Power Station. It is a nuclear power plant situated in Surat district in Gujarat, and it is operated by Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, that is NPCIL. It consists of 4 pressurized heavy water reactors, two 220 megawatt and two 700 megawatt. And see, fourth unit is the second indigenous. Which one is the first indigenous? That is Unit 3 of Kakrapar Atomic Power Station. First indigenous developed plant with modern safety features, and it started its commercial operation in year 2023, this August only. Okay, so this is all about Kakrapar Atomic Power Station. Now let's solve our question. So here you are provided with 2 statements. So the first statement is natural uranium consists of over 90% of uranium 235 isotope. Now you need to tell me whether this statement is correct or incorrect. See, 90% of uranium isotope naturally occurring is 238, not 235. This makes our first statement incorrect. Okay. Then, criticality of a nuclear reactor occurs when neutrons production exceeds the rate of neutron losses, causing uncontrolled chain reaction. Now, what is criticality? When number of neutrons produced in the nuclear fission or in the process is equal to the number of neutrons lost in the process. That is criticality. That is equilibrium. That is controlled chain reaction. But what is supercriticality? Supercriticality, where number of neutrons exceeds number of neutrons produced in the process exceeds number of neutrons lost, and this will lead to, yes, this will lead to uncontrolled chain reaction. So with this, our second statement is incorrect. So both these statements are incorrect. So our answer is D. Neither one nor two. Answer of this PYQ is option D. Okay. Now let's come to our last free pointer, which is based on this news article, which appeared on page number 11 in the Indian Express. Context of this news article is that this article basically discussed the reasons and amplification of improvement in the condition of exchange of the agricultural labors, and this article also talk about terms of trade, which will take up in the form of MCQ. Okay. Now UPSC has been asking question based on terms related to economy or concepts related to economy. Like this question based on convertibility of rupee came in year 2015. So here we have taken a practice question based on terms of trade. Now what is terms of trade? To answer this question, first you need to understand what is terms of trade for any sector. See, terms of trade for any sector, you take it manufacturing sector, agricultural sector, or industry sector, it refers to the movement of prices of products within that sector relative to prices of non-sectoral products. So if we are talking about agriculture sector, then it is movement of prices of agricultural commodities. Okay, that relative to prices of non-agricultural commodities. Okay, got it? So terms of trade is movement of prices of products within that sector, agricultural sector or industrial sector, to prices of non-sectoral, which is not part of that specific sector. So here, if we are talking about agriculture, it is movement of price of agricultural commodities relative to price of non-agricultural commodities, and it is calculated by GVA deflator. Now what is GVA deflator? Gross value added deflator, which is a measure of inflation also. It is GVA at current price divided by GVA at constant price. Okay. So if we want to calculate terms of trade for farm sector or agriculture sector, then it will be GVA of agriculture or deflator of agriculture in GVA of non-agriculture. Okay, that is terms of trade of farm sector. And terms of trade can be calculated for service, for industries. Okay. So now what is mentioned in the context of this article is that there is a terms of trade of farm sector has been increasing if you compare with last decade. In last decade, it was 96% and currently it is 126%. So you can see terms of trade has been increasing. Now what does it mean if terms of trade is increasing? That means price of agricultural commodity is higher than price of non-agricultural commodity. Okay. Now why price of agricultural commodity is higher than non-agricultural? Because of rising demand of agricultural products in global market. Okay. Plus there's a government support also in the form of policies like we have MSP, minimum support price, which led to the increase in demand of agricultural products in global market, that led to the rise in terms of trade of agricultural sector, and that is why we have increasing tendency of terms of trade. Got it? Now let's solve this MCQ based on our above discussion. Terms of trade for any sector refers to the movement of price of product within that sector relative to price of non-sectoral products. Okay. Now this statement is correct as I told you. It is terms of trade for any sector is movement of price of product within that sector relative to price of non-sectoral products. Now let's come to the second statement. India has been experiencing declining TOT, terms of trade in agriculture. But just now I told you, India is witnessing increasing terms of trade since last decade. Currently it is 126%. If you compare with last decade, that is 96%. So there's an increasing tendency of terms of trade. This makes our second statement incorrect. So with this, our answer is option A, that is only one, because only first statement is correct. And answer of this PYQ is option C. Okay. So that's all for your prelims. Now let's come to the main section. So let's start with our export-led model article, which is based on this article which appeared on page number 6 in the Hindu newspaper. Now, this article provided fact with respect to imports and exports for the month of October. And what are those facts? That India's exports fallen by 2.8% if you compare with 2022 level, and India's import fallen by 4.2 percentage. Okay, and driven these two factors led in the fall of merchandise trade deficit. See the gap. Now, what is this mercantile trade deficit? Is import minus exports. So, though gap between import and export is narrowing down, falling down, but still we witness current value of export is falling. Still, India is importing more and exporting less. But to become export-led model or to export more, this is a challenge for India. So we'll in this discussion we'll deal how we can rectify this issue. Also, why we have taken this article for your discussion, for your mains discussion, because Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development, and employment mentioned in your syllabus under GS paper 3. Okay. Also, UPSC has been asking question based on different aspects related to growth and development. Like in year 2015, UPSC framed a question with respect to says special economic zones. Here you need to write down about the issues playing the success of CES with respect to taxation, governing laws and administration. Also in year 2017, there was a question which talks about the failure of manufacturing sector in achieving the goal of labor intensive exports rather than capital intensive exports. We'll deal with all these terms in our discussion. Okay. So in this discussion, we'll see what is export-led growth model of development. Now, why we need it? So if we need it, what are the challenges we are facing that we can't achieve it till now? So what are the constraints behind it? Then we'll end our discussion with a way forward. Okay. So now let's start our article. Let's start our discussion. See, export-led model hypothesis provided by United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, that is UNCTAD, CTAD. Okay, so in export-led hypothesis, export is the key determinant of growth of economy. Okay, so export is the key determinant of growth of economy. So if you want to generate growth, then what we need? We need to expand our exports. Okay, So here exports will work as growth of engines. Engines of growth. Okay. So here exports will work as engines of growth. So if you want to generate growth in respective economy, you need to expand export basket. Okay. That what is export led hypothesis by United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Okay. Now, what kind of countries can promote export led model? Countries which seeks economic development by opening up their economies to the international trade. Okay, because they need to export and they need to import in the process. So here you can see export led virtuous cycle. If there's an increase in exports, definitely it will increase compensation and innovation. See, to make your product more market competitive, definitely you will work on innovation. So there will be increased compensation and innovation. And if your product is more market competitive, then demand will be more. So it will enhance or it will generate more jobs. Definitely, this sector, which is attracting a lot of youths or lot of job creation is there, definitely there it will attract more investment, and finally it will lead to the economic growth of a particular country. That's how we connected export to growth. So this is virtual export led virtuous cycle. And this vision is well aligned with India's vision to become $5 trillion economy. To attain this, definitely India need to become export led model, example of export led model country. Okay, so for this, what India need to do? India need to integrate with global value chains. Okay, and integrating with global value chains definitely will attract investment, lead to more job creation, and lead to economic growth. Okay, so this is all basics about export led model. Now, why we need export led model? Before that, you need to understand the current scenario of India's trade, or you can say India's trade landscape. Got it? So first is India's share in world export market is quite low, or you can say it was stagnant till year 2020. It was 1.6% till 2020, but it witnessed an upmark in year 2021, and currently it is 2.6 percentage. Okay, so India's share in the world export currently is 2.6 percentage, which is high if you compare with countries like Vietnam having 1.5 percentage. Okay, but still it is low if you compare countries like South Korea having 2.7, China having 14%. So you can make a difference between China and India here. Okay. Then dependency on import of critical goods. India is still dependent on imports for its needs of critical goods. And what are those critical goods? Like pulses, oil seeds. Then we have electronic items. So these are critical goods. And India is still dependent on imports. So what it shows? It shows India lack self sufficiency. Self sufficiency. Okay. Then we have domination of capital intensive goods in export basket. Now, what do you mean by capital intensive goods? See, any industry or process utilizing lot of capital for production of goods and services. So, capital intensive industries will produce goods like gems, jewelry, है ना? So, all these will come under capital, petroleum products will come under capital intensive goods. Okay, so what for this section of industry we need heavy investment in manufacturing like machinery, okay, industries. But India domination of capital intensive goods is more than another type of goods, that is labor intensive. Now, labor intensive goods are those goods or industries which depends on large amount of labor for the production of goods and services. So why I am telling that domination of capital intensive goods? Because see, the proportion of these goods are high and these goods require less labor, and production of these labor intensive goods are less. So definitely it's a cause of concern if you talk about employment, with respect to employment. Okay, then we have current account deficit. That means imports are higher than exports. So imports minus export is CAD. Suppose import is 100 rupees and export is 80 rupees. So the 100 minus 80, 20 is our current account deficit. Okay, so this is the current scenario of India's trade. Now you know that there's a domination of capital intensive, which is not well with current scenario with respect to job creation. Then we are still dependent on critical products, imports of critical products. Then India's share in world export is quite low. Just now we have seen. So because of all these factors, there's a need of export-led model. Okay. Now you understand why there is a need for export-led model. Now, first is, in this is empirical evidence. Now, what do you mean by empirical evidence? That countries like Japan, South Korea, these countries are having high economic growth by walking on the path of being a country like export-led model growth country. If you take example of bigger economies like China, China is also following the same. If you take example of smaller economies like Vietnam, they are also doing it. So why India cannot? Okay. So empirical evidence is there. Empirical the evidence in support of India's journey to export-led model. Then there is a need for shift from consumption-led to investment and export-driven model. Now, growth, see, this consumption-led growth is dependent on consumer spending. Okay. And there's a rise in consumer spending. Why? Because there's a rise in wages and because of low interest rates. So there's a high consumer spending. So this economic growth is basically dependent more on domestic spending and consumer activity. Okay. Second, we have export led or investment led model. In this model, basically, it is dependent on high business activity. Okay. So high business activity, here we need to invest more on infrastructure, machinery and all. So currently, India is having more of consumption led because 60% is coming, 60% of our GDP is coming from this model. And only 12% is coming from export driven model. Now, if India need if India is aspiring to become $5 trillion economy, do you think that literally India can do by dependent only on domestic activity? No. Why? Because this comes with its own challenges. Because if you are more dependent on domestic activity, then there will be rise in imports. And as I told you, rise in imports will give rise to current account deficit, which is another cause of concern. So we need shift from consumption led to investment and export driven model. Okay. Then we have conducive environment. Why? Because there is a current void generated by because of declining exports from China because of US China trade war. Okay, so there's a fall in amount of like in quantity of exports from China. Then we have high labor costs in countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh. So India can utilize this as an opportunity and come up as an export country, or it can increase its share in the global market. So conducive environment is the another factor for export led model. Then we have boost make in India and assembled in India. So if we combine these two, then it will give India a win-win situation. Why I am telling win-win? Because it will create a lot of exports, plus it will boost job employment also. So if integration happen in India, then there's a study that our export will rise from 3.5 percentage to 6 in 2025 to 2030. 3.5 percentage 2025 to 6 percentage in 2030. And same if you talk about job creation, 4 crore jobs will be created in year 2025 and 6 crore jobs will be created in year 2030 just by integrating these two. That is make in India and assemble in India. Okay, that is promoting export led model. Then innovation and efficiency. See, if you want to boost business activity, what you need to have market competitive product. Okay, that means this product should be technological sound, low in price. Okay, how it will be possible? By engaging technology. And for that, what you need? R&D, proper R&D. So there is a need to boost research and development, which in turn will give rise to innovation and efficiency in the market sector. Okay, so these are the important evidences which can help India to recreate its story. Okay, now having seen the what is export led model, importance of export led model, that why India should pursue it, but what what is restricting India in achieving this goal, when we know how important it is for India? Because we have constraints on the supply side and demand side. So first we'll see the constraints with respect to supply side, that is with respect to India. Then we'll see constraints with respect to demand side. Demand side means where India is exporting. Okay. So first we'll start with dominance of dwarf firms in MSME sector. See, MSME is providing 40% of exports. Okay, to India's GDP and 45% of marketing output. Okay, this is the proportion provided by MSME. But this sector itself facing issue with respect to FOP. What is FOP? Factors of production. Challenges with respect to land, labor, and capital. And this sector is following obsolete or utilizing obsolete technology. If any sector is utilizing obsolete technology, definitely they will not produce market competitive product, right? So how India can climb uh, this journey based on this sector, which itself is facing issue, which itself is facing bottlenecks of with respect to FOP, with respect to obsolete technology. Got it? This is a major challenge. Then India is having higher logistic cost. See, India is having higher logistic cost owing to factors like poor roads, uh, uh, less last mile connectivity with respect to roads and railways. So, owing to these factors, India is having low logistic cost. Sorry, high logistic cost. So, when India is having high logistic cost, definitely it will be added up into product cost, and this makes India's product uncompetitive in global market. And here you should know that India's logistic cost with respect to GDP is 14%. Okay. And if you compare with developed nations, they are having logistic cost around 8 to 10 percentage. So there's a 6 percentage difference between India's and developed nation. So definitely their products will be more market competitive. So we need to work on this. Then next is challenge with respect to trade facilitation. Now, trade facilitation means require less paperwork. Less paperwork means fast track process. Fast track process means more exports. Okay, because it will take less time, it will take less cost, products will be more market competitive, amount of exports will be more. This is the ideal situation. But if you talk about India, which measure trade facilitation uh, by India's trade facilitation criteria is quite low, which is one of the measure if you are talking about ease of doing business, which is calculated by World Bank. Okay. Then we have poor innovation. See, just now we have discussed the beauty of good innovation, because if you consider business activity with high innovation, definitely their products will be more market competitive because they are more technologically sound, less price. Okay. But India is not having such situation, because India is spending how much percentage on R&D? India is spending only 0.7 percentage on R&D. And if you compare with USA, it is 2.7 percentage. If you compare with Israel, it is more than that. And how much India is spending? 0.7 percentage. So how we will get market competitive product or technologically sound product? So poor innovation is one of the challenge faced by supply side. Okay. Then identification challenge. See, if each of us is having unique talent, and to explore our potential, we need to tap our unique talent. Same goes with the districts in India. Every district is having capability to be a part of export cluster. But what India is missing is India is missing identification of these clusters within states. So there is identification challenge if you talk about with respect to India. Then we have adverse impact of free trade agreements. Now, what see India signed many free trade agreements with countries like Japan, South Korea. Okay, and these trade agreements led to the inverted duty. Okay, structure. Now, what do you mean by this? Basically, inverted duty structure is when there's a high tax on raw material in comparison to finished goods. Now, what does it mean? That finished goods is cheaper if you compare with raw material. So, definitely demand for finished goods will be more than raw material. So, these free trade agreements led to increase in imports because of inverted duty structure. Okay. So, these are the important supply side constraints with respect to India. Now, India is exporting products to another country. So, we do have demand side constraints. First is rising protectionist policies in importing countries. Now, what do you mean by protectionist policy? Any country who is following protectionist policy, definitely they will be curbing imports. And do they how they will do? By raising protectionist tariff or quota system. This will make import product costlier than domestic product. So this will make export tougher. Got it? So countries following protectionist policies, definitely it will hamper India's export strategy. Then we have easier market access to India's competitors. See, if you, for example, products coming from countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh, they are getting entry in global markets like of European Union, USA with zero custom duty. Okay, they enter the global market with zero custom duty. Same, India's product will enter global market with high custom duty. Now you tell me which product is cheaper and which product will be costlier. Definitely India product, no. So easier market access to India's competitors is going against us. Okay, this is the another challenge. Then we have WTO norms. See, there is an indiscriminate use of sanitary and phytosanitary measures by other countries with respect to India. You take example of, you must have heard about it, basmati rice and non-basmati rice. A lot of containers of basmati and non-basmati rice rejected by US under the garb of low hygiene issue. Okay, there are no set norms. So, because of this indiscriminate use of sanitary and phytosanitary norms, we are facing, or there's a decline in India's exports. Okay, so these are the important constraints with respect to demand side. Got it? So, supply side and demand side constraint we have just discussed now. Now, we know why it is so important. We know what are the constraints. Now, let's see what should be the way out. First in this is to improve trade competitiveness. And how we'll do that? By improving access to factors of production, by resolving bottlenecks with respect to land, labor, capital. Got it? It will reduce our logistic cost. As I told you, it is 14% of GDP. And if you compare with developed nation, they are having 8 to 10%. So India need to work on it to make its product price competitive. Then next is to protect domestic market. As I told you, we are facing issue of like inverted duty structure. Okay. So for this, what we can do? We can have strong and effective technical regulation, and we should use trade measures like anti-dumping unit. Now you need to tell me in comment box what do you mean by anti-dumping unit, and I will give you a hint. It is a protectionist measures. Okay. Then safeguard duties. Then we have what is much needed is better interministerial coordination. Better coordination between different ministries like foreign ministry, Ministry of Commerce and Industry for better trade facilitation. Okay. And we need to talk, or we need to have a regular interaction with state government also. As I told you, we need to, what India is facing challenges with respect to identification challenges to find out export clusters. Okay. So for that, we need to have a regular interaction with the state governments. Got it? Then, as I told you, how important is MSME for India's economy, because it is providing 40% of the output, export output. Okay. So, and still we know the problems faced by MSME. Okay. They are using obsolete technologies. So, what is much needed here is hand holding support to have access to factors of production and use of appropriate technology to boost exports. Got it? Then, they need to increase access to formal finance. The access to formal finance should be improved to boost production, and it will definitely create jobs, because less than 4% of small firms in India have access to formal finance. And if you compare with nations like US, Vietnam, China, they are having 21% and we are having 4%. Okay. So there is need to increase access to formal finance. Then we need to reorient special economic zone, and this suggestion is provided by Baba Kalyani committee, which you can even write down in your mains answer as a suggestion. You can quote this committee. You should try to quote facts, figure, data in your answer to fetch more marks or to improve the quality of the answer. Okay, so you need to have notes of specific committees or specific facts or specific reports for your answer. Okay, so here important committees, Baba Kalyani committee, and this committee recommended that SES should be renamed as M3Es, that is employment and economic enclaves. Why? Because that focus should not be only on boosting exports. Focus should be on employment generation, GDP growth rate. Okay. Then, as I told you, how important is for India to come into the global chain. So there is need for integration into global value chain, and how we can do that by simplifying our labor laws. Okay, by scrapping retrospective taxes, by low corporate taxes, then only firms will come to India, uh, then China. So for that, we need to integrate India with global value chain by solving our complex labor laws, by scrapping retrospective taxes, by lowering down our corporate taxes. Okay, so these are the important way forwards. So in the line of this, India came up with, sorry, foreign trade policy 2023, and its broad objectives are that increase India overall exports to dollar trillion by 2030. Okay, with equal contribution from merchandise and service sectors. So here they given equal proportion or importance to merchandise and service sector. Work towards making Indian rupee a global currency, which will facilitate international trade in INR. Okay. Then wider engagement with states and districts to promote exports. Last but not the least, focus should be given on e-commerce exports to streamline the process. Okay. So that's all with respect to export led model or different aspects related to export led model. If you have any doubt, kindly drop your doubts in our comment box. Okay. So now let's come to our next topic, which is based on this news article which appeared on page number 6. This article talks about Forest Right Act, and you know that government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of design and implementation is important part of your syllabus under GS paper 2. So that's why we have taken this topic for discussion. So before moving to objective of Forest Right Act 2006, first let's have few words about its historical background. See, tribals and other traditional communities or forest dwellers, they were residing in forests since eternity. Okay. So, in the process, they developed a mutualistic relationship between them, between forest, a relationship between forest dwellers and forest. Why? Because they were dependent on forest for forest produce, for their livelihood. That's how their relationship was. Then British came up, and British, uh, by curbing, they try to curb resources. They To control resources of forest resources, British curbed the rights of forest dwellers. Okay, by bringing up legislations like India's Forest Act 1927. So this legislation curbed the customary rights of forest dwellers with respect to that forest, and this you can say this torture or continued even after independence till we got Forest Right Act 2006, or you can say Scheduled Tribes and other traditional forest dwellers recognition of Forest Right Act 2006. So this is all about the historical background of Forest Right Act. So this act recognizes and vests, let me write, recognizes and vests forest rights and occupation in forest land in whom? In FDST, that is forest forest dwelling scheduled tribes, FDST, and ODFT, that is other traditional forest dwellers. So this act particularly recognizes and vests forest rights and occupation. Okay, rights and occupation in forest land in FDST and ODFT. Also, this act recognized the conservation regime or the importance of conservation, and it also ensure livelihood and food security to FDST and ODFT. Also, this act particularly it rectify the injustice done by colonial power. Okay, by providing or by giving traditional land right to forest dwellers. Okay, you should know this these forest dwellers, they are very important for the forest ecosystem, forest sustainability, for its conservation, for its maintenance, for its continuity. Okay, so this act recognizes all these importance. Okay, so this is the basic objective of Forest Right Act 2006. So this act identify four type of rights. First is title right, right to ownership provided to forest dwellers, and here maximum of 4 hectare. And you should know that this right is basically for the land they are connected with or they are cultivating. They will not get new land rights or land rights with respect to new land. Okay, under this act. So this is all about the title right. Then they have use right. Forest dwellers can use the minor produce from the forest like tendupata, medicinal plants. Other than, you need to tell me, other than which one is excluded? Yes, timber. For what? For the sake of or to reduce deforestation. Okay. Then they have use right. Then they have relief and development right. Basically, to rehabilitate in case of illegal eviction or forced displacement. So they will be served with basic amenities. Okay. Then they have forest management rights. Here, it includes right to conserve, manage, or you can manage any community forest which they have been traditionally protecting and conserving for sustainable use. So these are the four set of rights provided under this act. First is title right, which is limited to maximum of 4 hectare. Then use rights, they can use minor produce. Then relief and development rights. Then forest management rights with respect to the community forest resource. Okay, so these are the four set of rights. Now, who can claim these rights? Any member of scheduled tribes who are residing in that particular forest or who are dependent on that forest uh, for its livelihood. Okay, other then members or members to community who have been or whose three generation, if you count total 75 years from the 13th day of December 2005, they can claim right over forest land. But that is also limited to or maximum is of 4 hectare. Okay, they can claim right because they are dependent on for their livelihood on that particular forest. Now, who is the governing authority? Who will find out the nature and extent of these rights, of individual rights, community forest right? Yes, Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha is the authority who will take care or who will determine the nature and extent of individual forest right and community forest right. Okay, so here we discuss the four type of rights and who can claim these rights. Next, let's discuss benefits of Forest Right Act. First, as I told you, it rectified the colonial injustice by recognizing the traditional rights of these communities over forest resource that were unjustly curtailed. Okay, then it led to the community empowerment. Why? Because earlier, who was the deciding factor or who was controlling or who was the top authority? State. But now decision making power lies with community. Okay, community, this is became the part of decision making process. So this led to the empowerment of community. Then we have democratic decentralization. Just now I told you who is the top authority. Gram Sabha. Devolvement of power is there from the center. Now, this Gram Sabha entail members from communities who are part of this forest only. So, it will lead to greater transparency. So, democratic decentralization is there. Then we have land rights recognition. Now, by recognizing the traditional right, by giving the legal right, now they have legal document or legally they are occupying that forest, which will safeguard them from unwarranted eviction. Okay, so land right recognition. See here, right to ownership means that even if they don't have legal document, they can still live on that parcel of land. And I told you who can claim these rights, but they don't need legal document after this act. So land recognition Then definitely it will lead to the protection of indigenous traditional knowledge. Then conservation and sustainable use. See, this right led to the protection of forests, and simultaneously it also ensure livelihood or food security of FDST and of forest dwellers and tribes. So it mark a right balance between conservation and sustainable use of forest produce. Okay. Then we have definitely, if they can use the forest produce, they can use the forest minor produce, they can sell it, and definitely it they will come out of the pool of poverty. So elevation of poverty. So these are the important benefits with respect to Forest Right Act 2006. Now, having seen the benefits, let's discuss few challenges. There's a poor awareness and understanding. To claim their rights, they need to properly understand the prospect of this act. For that, you need education or awareness. So definitely, how they will claim if they know about the prospect of this act. So there's a poor awareness and understanding. Then there's a bureaucratic hurdle. How there's a bureaucratic hurdle? Because recognition and verifying will take a lot of time, and it will lead to the slow implementation of this act. So there is a bureaucratic hurdle is there. Then resistance from forest department. As I told you, now power is with our community became the part of decision making process. Gram Sabha is the deciding factor if you talk about the nature and extent of individual right and community forest right. So the urge of forest department, or that central that craze for centralized authority, because of that there's a resistance from forest department. Okay. Then issues like eviction and displacement. Then we have technology related issue. See, for verification they launched one mitra software, and now these regions, they are obviously these regions are facing issue of poor connectivity. Plus just now we have seen that there is poor awareness and understanding. Then how they will claim right, even if you bring up software like one mitra software, it is not serving their need in that way. So they face issues like technology related issue. So these are the important challenges with respect to Forest Right Act 2006. So, having seen the challenges, having seen the benefits, having seen the objective of this act, what is the need? Need is collaborative effort of government agencies, civil agencies, individuals. For what? For better implementation of Forest Right Act 2006. Okay. So, that's all with respect to this act. If you have any doubt, please drop your doubt in your comment box. Our team will respond as soon as possible. And if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. That's all for today. Stay tuned for more such updates.